Now earlier I mentioned that we were going to take you from the brain, through the nerves, and into the muscles. And what we'll see is that we can get adaptations in multiple places along this chain. And when I say into the muscles, we're going to go deep inside of the muscles to show you how the muscle contracts, as well as certain intracellular adaptations that improve without increasing the size of the muscle fiber. It's ridiculously awesome. So let's get into the brain. When you decide to contract a muscle, this starts all the way up in the brain in the motor cortex, which is this fold, or what we refer to as a gyrus, on the posterior aspect of the frontal lobe. This signal will move from the motor cortex through a neuron called an upper motor neuron, which travels down the spinal cord, and this upper motor neuron will eventually synapse with a lower motor neuron at a specific segment of the spinal cord, depending on the muscle we're sending the signal to. For example, if this signal is going to the biceps brachii, this synapse between the upper and lower motor neuron would occur at C5 or C6 spinal cord levels. If the signal were going to a lower muscle like the quads, this synapse would occur at the L2, L3, or L4 spinal levels. But after this synapse occurs, the axon of the lower motor neuron, and therefore the continuation of this signal, will travel through a spinal nerve until it reaches its target muscle, where it will then synapse with specific muscle fibers that make up that target muscle, and this causes those muscle fibers to contract. Now let's pause right here for a second and connect some more dots. That lower motor neuron that connected to a certain amount of muscle fibers within the whole muscle is called a motor unit. Or the textbook definition that I will often give my students is a motor unit is the motor neuron and the muscle fibers it controls. But with our example, we only activated one lower motor neuron and therefore one motor unit, which means we only activated a small amount of the total number of muscle fibers within that whole muscle. And so this is only going to generate a minimal amount of force. And so this is how motor unit recruitment works. If I lift something light, I need fewer muscle fibers to do that, so I only need to recruit a few motor units. But if I want to lift something heavy, I need more muscle fibers to be activated within the muscle. And so then I would start by activating more upper motor neurons in that motor cortex, which would then in turn activate more lower motor neurons that form the motor units with those muscle fibers, and I would generate more force or lift something heavier. So hopefully you are seeing that the force exerted by a muscle during a contraction depends on the number of motor units recruited.